Okay, welcome back. We're going to continue right on into episode 17, continue our journey into innate personality. And I hope this is fun and interesting for you. I think it's cool stuff. So, as I was saying when I paused for a break there, I don't think it's as useful to try and characterize these things with one simple thing. This is more complicated. So, I picked these parameters. What are the core driving values for the Greens? Is serving people and living deep human values. The innate abilities, they're very empathetic automatically and they're very appreciative. They most appreciate compassion and caring in other people. Common occupations, they're teachers, coaches, the human development side of human resources. And when they're 1D, they're overly emotional and unorganized. So what happens is that whenever you are too much in one color, it's the diagonal that suffers. Now, why is that? Let's take a look. So the green is into intuitive information and emotional deciding, and there they are. And what's least interesting to them is sensed information and logical deciding. When they become more and more green, they become more deeply invested in these things and less in these things. Hence the diagonal. So what's the clue here too? So you can always, if you're not sure about your color, you can ask, is the diagonal difficult for you? And here's where it gets tricky in this case. A lot of work situations push you into orange. So you may have learned to adapt and do it, but the question is it enjoyable for you? That's really the question. The yellows, it's relationship first. I want you to see these look similar, but they're actually quite different. This is about service and caring. This is about relating, collaborating. Oops. One thing I know about these people is they're almost universally likable. Everybody likes them. They most appreciate people who can bring collaboration and harmony, common occupations, marketing and sales. They're super at this. They make you want to buy. And their innate limitation is that they're conflict intolerant. They lack creativity, but the ones I've known, the more limiting factor is they cannot deal with difficult personnel situations that they should, because the relationship is so important. They hate to mess that up in favor of performance. We blues are into being the best and unfortunately in being right, especially intellectually. We're great at critical thinking. We appreciate clarity of thinking, common occupations, scientists and PhDs. I was in a recent NASA workshop and somebody came up to me at the break and said, I noticed there's 10 PhDs in this team and 9 are blue. The innate limitation is our criticism limits our relationships. We get so busy in the idea, we make that so important, and we're capricious. That means we change our mind. And why do we do that? Because the new idea is always more delicious than the old one. The oranges, discipline, process, and organization, structured thinking. They most appreciate certainty of result, common occupation, engineers and CEOs. And their innate limitation is when they're 1D, they lack empathy for others. This is why you can see a CEO get up and make a speech and say with a big smile, we closed the plant and laid off 20,000 people like it's a good thing. Why? Because he's thinking about the corporation and the numbers. So let's talk about the difference between scientists and engineers. I hope you know what they are. It's this simple. Scientists love surprises, engineers hate them. So this is a little piece. I wouldn't take this as one of my best pieces, but I kind of like to have it for completeness. It's really interesting if you can determine someone's color to address them with things they care about. And for the greens is the things on the screen. I've only used this really once, and that's dealing with a very, very difficult 1D blue. This is the most difficult personality. This was when I worked for the NASA administrator, And when I wanted to persuade him on something, I would come up here and talk about the stretch outcome, the possibilities, the vision, the ideas. That would get his mood great. Then I could trot him over to a place he didn't want to go, how it was good for the NASA workforce, but now you could hear it. So that's that my only real case of application, but file this away. It's just useful stuff to think about. I'm going to show you the culture piece about proposals. And this is astounding. So what happens is if you match your proposal team's color to that of the customer, you'll beat someone who doesn't. And you can read about this in the chapter on culture in the book. When you don't, you're going to lose to someone who does. And I got over $10 billion of business for TRW doing this very simple thing. And you can just teach people to do it in real time and have them go along and do the work. So this is kind of fun. Companies and projects need to evolve. So early phase companies, entrepreneurial companies are about ideas. You can look at Apple, it's ideas about easy computing, or Tesla, the idea about electric cars and superior electric cars. And they've got to evolve to focus on manufacturing. And so I've never met Steve Jobs and never studied him very thoroughly, but I think this is right. An interesting study that he was fired as the CEO of a company that he founded by his board. And why they do that? Well, I wasn't there, but I'm sure it was that he kept coming back to new ideas, when what the company needed was to get into manufacturing and make some profit and pay the customers back. So after he was fired, he left, and they wanted a non-compete clause. And he said, "This is astounding. You want, there's four guys in blue jeans, and you want a non-compete when you got this gigantic company." So turns out they hired him back later, but not as CEO, but head of technology. And I believe Apple's got the highest market cap in the world today. And whether it's the iPhone or the iPad or these ideas that he came up with, constant ideas, very, very powerful. And difficult person. I think his daughter didn't speak to him. His neighbors didn't like him. Elon Musk is known for firing people in an elevator ride. Difficult people because they're so much into this blue state, but great contributors in the proper context and the proper place. So I was working with a big flight project, JWST, I talked about earlier, and it was, they were decreed to do that job for $500 million, which everyone with any sense knew was impossible. So the team was all blues, and I explained this slide to them, and I just was curious what they thought about this. So I went around the room and said, "What did you get from this?" And they said, "None of us are going to be there for the launch, are we?" I said, "No, you're not." And sure enough, once the project got into heavy funding and shifted the emphasis, they were all removed. It's just interesting, simple, powerful stuff. So just a little fun story. It's about a scorpion comes to a river. Scorpions can't swim. So he waits for a frog to show up, and he says to the frog, "How about a ride across the river?" And the frog says, "No way, you might sting me and kill us both." Scorpion says, "I wouldn't do that. That'd be stupid." The frog says, "Hop on." They get in the middle of the river, and he feels the sting and said, "You killed us both. Why?" Because scorpions do what scorpions got to do, and our innate personalities program us to do things that may or may not serve us well. So we're going to practice some movies. I'm not going to show you the movies. I'm going to just tell you the process, and I'll show you what people saw in the movie that let them diagnose who the person was. And here's the same basic stuff. You're looking for the values. Are they around empathy and appreciation? How they deal with inclusion? What their driving ideas, purposes are, and are they clear about direction? So the first one is Howard Hughes, and it's a real easy one. This is the result of it. When he's talking, the first thing he tells you is that he's going to be the richest man in the whole wide world. This is clearly a gigantic blue thing. He's got this number two guy flying in the airplane with him, and he goes into a little story about I'm just not interested in my fellow man. In fact, the other things interest me more. He says, what? It says like the sky and the planets and the universe beyond. And he said, I just have no interest in my next door neighbor. I couldn't care less about him. So he's telling you this. And then he's during the film clip, he's showing this in every dimension. During the film clip, he's bought a movie company. And his cohort there says, here's the final script. We're doing the filming. So you got the ending all wrong. You got to change it. And the guy argues back and says, no, life is like this sometimes. He says, no, you got to change that ending. So this is the capriciousness, a new idea all the time. And so the film never comes out because he keeps changing it, because he keeps thinking of better ideas. And the clip ends with him talking about needing to go around the world. And his colleague says, I think that's the best thing you could do. Kick back on an ocean liner and relax. He says, no, I'm going to fly. So he wants to break Wiley Post record. So you can just see it everywhere. And this is a very easy clip, this innate personality. And you can see the diagonal. He tells you, I have no interest in relationships at all. And so being a blue, I learned a long time ago to give this advice. If you're a blue, here's a choice you could make. Would you rather be close or be right? Which brings you more happiness? For me, I've learned that to be close is more, especially with really important relationships like my wife, than be right. Then we go to watch a coach. The coding formula is the same, fresh images, and the same test. So what happens is he's coaching a high school basketball team, and the scene is he goes in the locker room and slams his wallet down and screams, "How many times are you going to pass before we shoot the ball? 4 times." Okay, so then they go out on the floor, and there's one member of the team that's just the fantastic shooter. He can shoot the thing from everywhere. So he dribbles down, shoots, makes a basket, and the crowd roars, and the coach goes, comes down, does it again, shoots a basket, no passing. Coach is screaming, "Pass the ball, pass the ball." The guy ignores him. So he pulls him out of the game and sends in Ollie, who's a clearly very immature, inferior player, to replace him. And the crowd, high school crowd's going nuts. What's he doing this for? Then one of his players fouls out, and he puts him on the bench, and the star goes to jump back up and run back in the game. And he says, "Where are you going?" It's into the game. He says, "Sit. The referee comes over and says, "You need 5 people on the court," because he's only got 4 now. And he says, "That's my team." And as the game resumes, the mayor of the city is sitting next to him and says, "What are you trying to do?" What he's trying to do is make a statement. Again, during this whole thing, there's no empathy. There's no deep values. There's no kindness toward these boys. So a little fun here. A team effort is a lot of people doing what I say. So this is, again, an easy one. Everybody gets this. I looked for a long time for a yellow person and was surprised to find it in the U.S. General, Eisenhower. So the film clip is him making a talk at Sandhurst, the British equivalent of West Point. And he starts off telling, with big inclusion, every person, whether at the plow in the field or gun at the front, is equally responsible for this war. And then the direction is you must be their father, their mentor, even if you're half their age. And he says we're going to win the war through relationship. And so he's telegraphing this relationship message every place in this thing. Easy to see. He's a yellow. And to me, for the Supreme Allied Commander, the vision we're going to win World War II through relationship seems to me just lame. And he ran for U.S. president and was very successful. And his campaign slogan was, I like Ike. Have you seen any I like Trump buttons or I like Al Gore buttons? I haven't. So it's easy to spot him. This is the yellow writ large. I can't imagine myself saying this. Some of my friends are for it. Some of my friends are against it. I am for my friends. This is a much more complex and moving piece. Gandhi making a speech to the British audience. And he starts off with the big inclusion piece. I welcome you all. We're all children of God, Hindu and Muslim alike. Then he starts to talk about General Smuts' new law for fingerprinting, and he says, we will not submit. So he's giving this very firm direction. And he talks for a while about this, and he says, we will fight no one, we will strike no one, but we will receive pain and it will hurt, as all fighting hurts. And some people get up and say, well, do you know what they do to us? And he gets up and says, yep, we cannot lose. That's a beautiful vision. They can torture my body, even kill me. Then they'll have my dead body, not my obedience. He then asked the crowd to take a solemn oath about to follow his path to nonviolence, and they stand up, and then he leads them to sing "God Save Our Gracious King," the British national anthem, I guess. And so the crowd stands, and he even gets the British soldiers in there to stand up. So it's got a humorous piece to it. It's a very four-dimensional. It's a very beautiful thing, and it's clear that it's clear two things you learn from this. One is that when someone's four-dimensional, it's not so easy to see their color as it was with, say, the blue, the example of the blue. And if you go to the values, that's the place you see the real information. And how did he overthrow the British Empire? It's with this non-violent resistance. To fight against them, but non-violence, to show them their anger, not provoke their anger by fighting back physically. So the film clip is a rich treasure trove of stuff, very four-dimensional. So it gets to a point where he's made this great speech, he's set up the crowd, and now he needs the people to stand up. And so the first person to stand was an old man, then a young boy, then the whole crowd follows. And so my point is that when your team needs your leadership, if everybody just sat there and waited for Gandhi to do something else, nothing would have happened. You need to take accountability for your actions, stand up and do what's right for your team. So I was playing with Gerald, my friend from Germany, about this, and we were chatting and got this idea to try and explain this and have another fun way. So this is me, okay? I'm over here in the intuitor. I'm an intuitor first, okay? More than anything, living in the blue. What this means is the blue stuff gives me energy. I can almost wake up at night with a new idea and feel great. My second, the box size is how much energy you're getting. My number two is my caring to help people. So I get energy from this too. So why do I do these workshops? Because I use my intellectual material to make slides like you're seeing, and then implement them over here, which gives me great satisfaction. Because this is my home base, and this is my first, this is difficult for me. So I put in here a motor. There's no solar panel. I've got to take my energy from other places and power my motor. What's most difficult with the least energy is my diagonal. I've had to work many years to get the relational piece to really pay attention to it and do it right, because it's not part of who I am. And so suppose I'm interacting with another person. The dominant function is a sensor, the other side of the axis from me, and they're an emotional decider, so they're in my diagonal. They get energy from relationship and feeling included. And they get energy over here doing organization. They like doing that. They have some energy they can provide into the green, but for them, the most difficult part is the blue, where the motor is the biggest, needs the most energy, and they've got the least. So imagine I'm there with them and someone says, look, what a beautiful sunrise. My first instinct is to want to explain the physics of it and what's going on with the refraction of light and all that. And then I say, wait a minute, no, I'm going to meet them where they are. So I just smile and say, yeah, it's a lovely, lovely thing. And I'm glad to be here with you, enjoying this together. Go back to where they are, back to their relational piece. So I talked earlier about my attempt to find some organizing principle with different business books. Here's why it failed. Each author writes from their own one dimension. Stephen Covey, most of his books were written for the Church of Latter-day Saints. He was a deacon there. It's very much about deep religious principles and principle-centered leadership. And this book, Lencioni, someone suggested it to me. I was turned off immediately because the first part says nothing matters but teamwork, and I said that's not right. You need all of them. We had a very blue NASA administrator. He gave us all copies of In Search of Excellence. That should tell you something about that, what that book is about. And then this is kind of a joke, the Disciplined Leader with 52 Things to Do, the orange. So here's the message, takeaway. Each of these authors think that their personality is the only way to get success. And you know something that none of them do. Your success requires all four dimensions. So closing thoughts, our innate purposes for information and deciding to find our personality foundations, influencing every aspect of our being. People who use this tool find it very useful reporting a deeper understanding of themselves and others, optimization of their job. I talked a little bit about that. Optimization of their team's performance. I do that on the floor in the workshops. It's very powerful. And just a little close. Nothing in here says using this to limit anyone, so please don't do that. So card check, thumbs up for Zoom. And we're on to our next subject, which is the next diagnostic, which is what I call culture, how we do things. That'd be a session of episode 18. Thank you very much, and join me there soon. And be safe and be safe.